Good evening, I'm Sophie. In this video, we'll be looking at Tagore as a reformist by analyzing two of his short stories, which are Assets and Debts and also Kabuliwala. First of all, Assets and Debts. Assets and Debts is about the evils of child marriage and dowry practice. So looking at this short story, in the prospect of Tagore as a reformist, three main aspects will be focused on. The first one would be the materialistic society in the short story. Second would be the evils of patriarchy, and also about tradition versus modernity. On the aspect of materialistic society, consider this quote. Although the ancestral wealth of this Rai Bahadur had dwindled considerably, the family was still regarded aristocratic. Now, this quote from the story, tells how the concept of nobility based on wealth-based social class was inherently fake. Because in the end, this social class, although it was constructed on the basis of possession of wealth, yet the Rai Bahadurs retained their position, even though their wealth have been considerably declining, and thus they are actually not worthy of the said class. Later, they also insisted on high dowry to be imposed onto Nirupama's family, and this can be seen as a part of their desperation in maintaining their class and image in the society. A very significant part of this can be seen during the grander cremation of Nirupama, where it was done not out of respect, but is merely to promote their image. And the reason for this is because Tagore cleverly juxtaposed the cremation as grand as the ceremonial immersion that was done by another family, the Rai Chowdhuris. In the story, Tagore mentioned that the Rai Chowdhuris are well known in the district for their ceremonial immersion of the idol at the end of the puja festival. Here, Tagore want to say is that although the cremation of Nirupama was very grand, it was not meant to honor Nirupama, but meant to only promote their own image. And the other proof for this is that they also asked for more dowry from their new in-law daughter, which they found not long after the death of Nirupama. This shows the lack of respect for Nirupama, and also how they only use the cremation of Nirupama for their own benefits. On this aspect also, Tagore criticized the society who sees the event only through a materialistic manner. This was shown when Tagore mentioned that, as he consoled Ramsundar, everyone gave him long description of the pomp and grandeur of his daughter's death. They only described the pomp and the grandeur. They did not describe or try to understand what Nirupama had to go, nor even try to console Ramsundar on his grief. All they mentioned was the pomp and grandeur of her cremation. Next point would be on the evils of patriarchy. Now consider this quote, especially the three elder sons who were married and two even had children. This quote was mentioned by Tagore in context to Ramsundar trying to do his best in paying the debt, paying the dowry. However, the insistence on the elder sons for him on to Ramsundar so that they disregard Nirupama shows irony, because they are all the same family. They should realize the reason and desperation behind their dad's action. However, this shows the concept of us versus them, the elder son versus the sister Nirupama. It shows how they, as sons, regard Nirupama as a daughter lower than them because of their gender. Hence why the lack of feeling of solidarity and lack of urgency to help Nirupama and Ramsundar in saving Nirupama from her condition. And another part of this patriarchy is that we can see from the rejection of humanity in oppressing Nirupama and Ramsundar. Nirupama was taunted, ridiculed, imprisoned, deprived of proper food and clothing up until the moment when she died. They also prevented from meeting her father freely. In the story, Tagore described their meeting as to be met in a separate house, which possibly alludes to the Rai Bahadur treating Ramsundar as he is an untouchable, although he comes from a respected caste. This is because of his incapability in paying debt due to his poverty, hence why they regard him as if he is an untouchable. And this is also ironic because in the end, because we also know that The Rai Bahadurs are also struggling with money despite their social class. But however, the matter of their debt was only dealt as rumor. Last aspect would be the aspect of tradition versus modernity. In the short story, Tagore went to very minute details in explaining how the tradition of saving face was practiced by the characters in the story. This can be seen by Ram Sundar in many occasions, in which when he meets Rai Bahadur, he would be cowering and would be very afraid of not only not being able to pay, but also because of his self-image. It's also feels very ashamed of himself for not being able to buy dresses and card for the Puja festival, despite he knowing fully well that he is very poor and therefore have other more important responsibilities. This is also this saving face tradition is also shown by the Rai Bahadurs, in their attempts to appear wealthy and pompous and worthy of their social class. Hence the cremation, and also the insistence on the high dowry to instill their place in as family from a respectable social class. Also, on the topic of tradition versus modernity, consider this quote: seeing the poisonous fruit of modern education in his son. This was mentioned in regards to the Rai Bahadur commenting on his son's insistence to marry despite not being able to for Ram Sundar to pay the dowry. This is a Tagore's subtle critique on conservative ideals, and also how he portrays conservative ideals try to reject what is modern as considered as foreign. This is a sarcastic remark, of course. He does not mean that those modern education is poisonous. He meant to ridicule the elders' belief because they believe that his son's modern education is poisonous. Although modern education should be better. It should free society from oppressive traditions and culture. In conclusion, we can see that in writing Assets and Debts, Tagore criticized his society through aspects of its materialism, patriarchal system, and obsession with oppressive traditions. We can also see that in the short story, Tagore does not tell how to reform society. Instead, he subtly criticized aspects of society that needs to be reformed. And that is how Tagore approached reformism through his short story Assets and Debts.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. My name is Safina Tan, and today I will be talking about Kabuliwala, written by Rabindranath Tagore in 1892. It is a short story. Okay, so I will go on with the plot first before I go into the explanation of the stories. Okay, so the main character, there are three main characters in this short stories. The first one being the writers, the second one being the daughter of writers, Mini, and the third one is Kabuliwala or Rahmat. So Kabuliwala, what does Kabuliwala means? Kabuliwala can be used to describe someone who comes from Kabul in Afghanistan, which is the country that Rahmat, the Kabuliwala, comes from in the story. So Rahmat, the Kabuliwala, go to Calcutta to be a merchant. He sells seasonal goods such as fruits and nuts, and the story goes on. As one day, as Mini, she's a very talkative child and always asks questions, and her father is the only intel listener that she knows. Being only at 5 years old, she likes to ask questions and be critical about everything. And one day, she saw Kabuliwala, or this one Kabuliwala named Rahmat, and she shout out, Kabuliwala or Kabuliwala. And when Rahmat, this Kabuliwala, turned to her and see her, this Kabuliwala come to the front door or to the porch smiling as he is selling something. So the writer noticed this, and he went down and buy something from Rahmat, the Kabuliwala. And from there, they exchanged some things, and the writer feel obliged to buy something from the Kabuliwala since his daughter calls him. And she noticed that Mini has this fear of this Kabuliwala, and she called Mini to be to meet the Kabuliwala and to clear her fear. The Kabuliwala offers some nuts and fruits to Mini, and day after day, the Kabuliwala visits Mini, and their bond as friendship transcends between above everything that Mini doesn't understand yet. Because to her, Kabuliwala is the same as her father. Because this Kabuliwala is an intent listener and always listen to her and always like the idea of talking to her and encourage her and jokes around with her. So this is a foreshadowing from Tagore in this short story. This Rahmat has the fatherly figure attitude. So later on, there's a commotion that happened in front of the writer's house, and the commotion happened when a fight break out between Rahmat and his customer, that this neighbor of writer buy something from him but did not pay. And when Rahmat is handcuffed and being brought by the police, the writer asked for the details and everything, and he understood the situation. And then Mini came running out and shouting, "Kabuliwala, oh Kabuliwala, are you going to your in-law?" Because "are you going to in-law" is the jokes that revolves that is oftentimes used by Rahmat and Mini when they meet. So fast forward 8 years, and Kabuliwala is released from jail, released from prison after 8 years. After 8 long years, he is released from jails, and the day after he was released from jail, it was a day of a wedding of Mini, the little child that he always met. And the writer still recognized him after all these years without his long hair and saggy clothes. And Kabuliwala asked to meet Mini, and the writer refused because he feared that because Rahmat has once stabbed man, so this fear is taking places in his heart. So he does not have full belief in Rahmat as he used to be. And then Rahmat bringing the fruits and the dry fruits to give to Mini, and when the writers refused, Rahmat walked away from the wedding, but the writers called him back and gave him permission to meet Mini. And when they meet Mini, the Kabuliwala or Rahmat shows that a parchment, a piece of paper that has a mark of her daughter, handprint of her daughter. So when this happened, the writer finally understood why he always made Mini after all these years, because the writer finally understood that Rahmat also has a daughter in Kabul, Afghanistan, and he did not meet her for the last few years that he has been a merchant in Calcutta. So in this story, that we can see that Tagore is being critical with his ideology of reforming the social distances and the removal of inequality in the society. In this short story also shows that women especially does not believe or being fearful of these foreigners, because they are seen as a kidnapper, a thief, or a child kidnapper. So from this short story, we can see that Tagore is highlighting this problem, that is inequality and differences existing between the social classes and places, that makes people hate each other or does not believe each other. So in this short story, we can also see that despite of being a foreigners and the class is different, Rahmat and the writer is both a father figure to a daughter, to a children, in the sense that everyone is a human being. So and knowing Tagore, he is a social reformist. This message is quite clear and quite simple, as he wanted to portray that the social distinguishing between these two kind of people, one from a wealthy family and one from a poor family that's working hard. Both are the same, still a human being, still a father, and the social, the economic and cultural changes that Tagore wanted to further highlight is the to diminish all fear mongering that is caused by the society when someone screw up. It's not about their races or their where they came from, but it's about the person that made it. So I think that's all for me.